This is a recording of the lecture that was given in class on Monday, let's see, that was May 4th. So this doesn't include any class discussion. This is me recording it at home. Anyway, we are discussing central concepts in understanding Shakespearean verse, concepts that most of you remember from freshman year at Southview, if you attended freshman year at Southview, those dealing with iambic pentameter and the particular character of Shakespeare's poetry. So whenever you're looking at a term like verse, keep in mind that this term, verse, indicates, of course, poetry. So these two are synonymous, and if you see me or see somebody talking about verse, hear somebody talking about verse, me or anybody else, you know they are talking about poetry. And of course the word verse may be familiar to you from songs, because people will talk about songs in verse. That's because poetry is essentially words put to music. So let's talk about some of the different terms which refer to the musicality of poetry, especially as it pertains to Shakespeare. Your first is meter. Here's your definition. Meter is the arrangement of accented and unaccented syllables in a line of verse. And that may be about as clear as mud to you, so let me explain in simpler terms. All lines of poetry have a rhythm, which means that they have beats. Similar to how any music might have beats and a time signature, a meter is a reference to those beats. Now you get a beat in poetry and in spoken word by the arrangement of emphasized syllables and unemphasized syllables. So let's take, for instance, the word syllable. The word syllable contains 3 syllables, and it's pronounced with an accent on the first. Syllable, not syllable or syllable, but syllable. Syllable. We all tacitly agree on the pronunciation of these words, and if I start pronouncing them incorrectly, and not by actually forming the sounds differently, but by emphasizing different sounds, then we agree that I have made a mistake. Syllable, not syllable or syllable, but syllable. That emphasis right here on that first syllable makes a beat. Beat, down, down, beat, down, down. And the arrangement of those within a line of verse is the meter, the measure of the rhythm, the beats. The foot in poetry analysis refers to a single unit of syllables. It might be 2 or 3 syllables long. In a meter stick, you would divide the meter by centimeters or decimeters or millimeters or what have you. In poetic meter, the line is divided into feet, and these are different units. And they often repeat, they can interchange, they can rearrange. Each foot will be about 2 or 3 syllables long. Many different types of feet exist in poetic verse. The one that we'll talk about with Shakespeare is the iamb. This is Shakespeare's preferred foot, and you'll recognize this term in just a moment if you don't recognize it already. An iamb is a 2-syllable foot consisting of an unaccented syllable followed by an accented syllable. So instead of a up down, a beat rest, as in many people's names, David, Alex, emphasis on the first syllable, de-emphasis on the second. Instead of that, the iamb is an emphasis on the second syllable. So, such as the word hello. We don't pronounce it hello, we pronounce it hello. Most commonly. We can of course pervert that, but the common pronunciation of hello is includes the emphasis on the second syllable. Most names are like this as well. So, I'm sorry, most names are not like this. Let me clarify. Some names are like this. For instance, the name Leanne includes the emphasis on the second syllable. We often say Leanne, not we say Leanne, not Leanne. And to pronounce it differently, to place the emphasis or the beat on a different syllable, is uncharacteristic. Shakespeare takes his iambs and arranges them 5 per line, hence the term iambic pentameter. So the iambic pentameter line, which is familiar to many high school students and understood by very few, is actually very simple. 5 iambs per line making an average of 10 syllables. Some lines vary, but for the most part, he uses these 10-syllable iambic pentameter lines. Usually, not always, but usually. Most of the time you see Shakespearean verse, you'll find an iambic pentameter line. Such is the case with his most famous line, to be or not to be. And if you read that, you can see that you can hear that he has emphasized every alternate syllable. To be or not to be. The emphasis when spoken by an actor would be subtle but present. The actor would not speak it to be or not to be, but the actor would speak to be or not to be. And Shakespeare arranges the words of importance on the beat. So the words of importance in this line, and by the way, in this line, Hamlet, the titular character of the play, is contemplating suicide. He's wondering whether or not he should kill himself. The opening line of the soliloquy is to be or not to be. The important words are be and not. So Shakespeare has written the line such that those important words are emphasized with the beat, and he arranged them on the iambic pentameter, to be or not to be. This is a regular rhythm, and it's fairly simple. And there's a fairly simple reason for it as well. You'll read some analysis of verse that talks about how easy it is to write this and how easy it is to use it to emphasize certain syllables and certain words within lines. But you must also understand that in Elizabethan England, as actors are acting in a globe theater, for instance, they are acting against a couple of different challenges. Number one, they are acting without the benefit of speakers and microphones as in a modern theater, which means they must project their voice. Number two, they must project their voice over what might be a bit of noise. So the groundlings and those in the stands may be talking during the theater performance. You might consider the theater performance something more akin to a baseball game than modern theater. Modern theater, where we are all told to turn our cell phones off and not talk, is not exactly similar to what you might see in an Elizabethan theater. So the actors here must project their voices and be heard quite clearly amongst the crowd without the benefit of the speakers and the microphones. If your lines consistently lift up, 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 to be or not to be, it helps you push your voice out. If we reverse the rhythm with the up, down, to be or not to be, then the actor's voice is constantly dropping down, and the actor must work against the meter itself in order to present their voice fully. This doesn't work very well for an actor trying to overcome the challenges of Elizabethan theater. Shakespeare wrote for actors. Shakespeare understood his actors, he understood verse, he understood how it could be used, and once he understood that iambic pentameter worked for this, he used it often, and again, and again, and again. Shakespearean verse is fairly easy to analyze on this level. He uses the same tricks over and over and over again.